Welcome on into episode number 88 of the Wise Guys podcast. I'm John Tortorelli, Brand Capozziello. No J Ray for today, but we will be discussing the Mavericks Falloff, what's going on in Dallas, plus the MVP discussion and the UFC's judge controversy. BC, I'm excited to talk to you today. How you doing this fine Sunday?
Doing good. Got a good night's rest. Also want to bring up UConn, baby. We doing the damn thing. Don't be sleep. I told y'all. Now listen, I didn't know crap about college basketball, but I'm riding that train hard now because I'm from Connecticut. And we here, man. We here. Final Four.
This is big time for Dan Hurley and co. I got to meet his dad, Dan Hurley, UConn head coach. His dad, Bob, best head coach in the history of New Jersey basketball. And so, to see the job he's done this year, getting to the Final Four, no? Or is it the
we're in the Final Four. We're in the Final Four. We play FAU.
And they're the 9 seed. They've done
they're
quite the Cinderella run for them.
They're the Cinderella story. But I think that we're playing. We've been knocking out some teams. Now they've knocked out some teams too. But listen, I'm just riding that UConn train hard. Let's go UConn. Woof woof. Huskies.
Beating Gonzaga by 20. It's crazy. Speaking of blowouts, the Dallas Mavericks, man, this has been quite the fall off for them, Brandon. They've won 3 games only with Luka and Kyrie together to 7 losses. Their most recent game versus the Mavericks wasn't quite a blowout, but it felt like a blowout loss when he lost the Charlotte Hornets. The worst team, the second worst at least, in the Eastern Conference. Now, they play Charlotte again today. They'll have a chance to get to 37 wins on the season, and they'll also get a get-right game. The Mavericks, though, feel off. As Luka Doncic said, I'm not having fun anymore. And some of that had to do with off-court stuff. He's dealt with some family issues over the course of the season. But one thing remains true in Dallas, and it's that the pressure on them this season, it feels insurmountable. Kyrie is an unrestricted free agent, and you have an incomplete roster. I don't know where it all went wrong necessarily, but the biggest issue for Dallas was losing Jalen Brunson. And in the process, they sacrificed 2 of their most important role players from last year's contending team. In the process, they get Kyrie. And now I look at this roster, it feels like in many ways they're going to need not just Kyrie staying this offseason, but man, if they don't make it at the play-in tournament and Kyrie walks, Brand, this could be one of the most dire situations this offseason.
Color me not surprised, my friend. I mean, I called it from day one when the trade happened that this is not going to work. It's going to be a failure. They will not get to a final. And when I posed this question, actually we had Romain on too with Justin. I posed the question because I heard it. I forgot where I heard it from. Are the Dallas Mavericks with this team more likely to make it to the finals or be bounced out in the first round? Now, me and Romain were steadfast on they're more likely to get bounced the first round. You were a little more in the middle that you didn't want to say bounce in the first round, but you were more on Justin's side but Justin was, I mean, he was as far as you could get. He said, I'm guaranteeing they ain't getting bounced in the first round. Now, listen, my friend Justin's not here to defend himself, but Mr. Justin Ray, it looks like they may not even make it to get to the first round. So you got to hope to get there. So his guarantee is not working out for Mr. One Justin. So in terms of the Mavericks, though, what's going on? It's what I said. You brought in Kyrie. It's not going to work, man. It's not. These two don't mesh well together. I just had a feeling that Kyrie coming in was going to just completely mess with Luka's whole game, where it's Luka's team, Luka's ball. He controls everything. And now you're bringing Kyrie in, who, I mean, he's more ball dominant than Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson, I think, is a much more effective player off the ball than Kyrie is. Not saying that he's an insane off the ball, offensive player, but more than Kyrie is. So this partnership, and also you bring it up, they got rid of Dorian Finney-Smith, so you kind of traded your best 3-and-D wing for some more offense, and your offense hasn't been able to work as much. Now, listen, they were able to beat the Lakers a couple days ago, which is a shock to me. It was by 1 point. I think if AD is playing a team that got no big man to really compete with him, they should not be losing. I'm sorry. You're Anthony freaking Davis. All right. Now they had that controversial win. I mean, loss against the Warriors with the play that Mark Cuban is now I'm forgetting the word, investigating or challenge to the league. That's probably not going to go anywhere. They rarely do that.
Probably not. And the overreaction to this being the most egregious, worst non-call ever, that was a bit too much, Mark.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, it was bad, but like it was in the third quarter. You had an entire fourth quarter to if that was the last play of the game, okay, you have a point, but come on now. So, but the worst loss, I think, is the one to the Hornets that just happened in Dallas, and Kyrie and Luka are playing. Now, I haven't been keeping track of that stat that I gave to you guys, everybody, of Kyrie taking more fourth quarter shots than Luka in their first couple games together. I would imagine Kyrie is still higher than Luka. So looking at his stats, I mean, Luka had a good game, 34 and 10 with eight assists. Kyrie, not so much. I just look at it, I think the biggest thing is defense. They don't got defense. They got no wings to defend, and they got no big men to rim protect. And that's going to be an issue when your two main guys can be taken advantage of on the defensive end. I mean, you have to outscore the opponent. That like every game you walk into, you go, yeah, we have to. Like, we're not stopping anybody. We just have to outscore them offensively. Go tit for tat. That's what we have to do. And that's not a style in terms of being a consistently good team.
Okay. You're not wrong, Brent, but I fundamentally disagree with everybody that puts the Mavericks blame on Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. For one, their head coach and Jason Kidd has had a terrible year. Rotationally, his substitutions don't make sense, and emotionally, he is not a good coach. Then you look at the defense. As you said, DFS was their best and, quite frankly, only point of attack defender. Maxi Kleber was coming off a surgery where he had a torn hamstring repaired. And Reggie Bullock, man, that guy gets cooked off the dribble often by quicker guards. So it's one thing to lose your best defender on the perimeter. It's another thing to then put the blame on Luka, a top 5 player in the world, and Kyrie, who, I get it. Kyrie is a volatile player. One of 8 their last game from 3-point. But Kyrie is the most skilled secondary star in the NBA. And the Mavericks offensive rating when those two guys are on the floor is a 124. That's one of the best in the NBA. The partnership between those two guys can work. It will work if you put the team around them. But the strange parts, especially at center where you're playing a backup in Dwight Powell, is not going to make things better. Now, the biggest issue in the stretch, it's surprise, surprise, it's been defense and it's been coaching. Late in games, not only has Jason Kidd done a poor job with his rotations, but the guy can't draw up a play for these two guys. It feels like, as Kyrie Irving once said, hey, look, we don't need a head coach, and we're going to go out there and do our own thing. Now, on the offensive side of the ball, they're a volatile team as they always have been. And the construct of the Mavericks was meant to be a year ago. Luka with 3-point shooters off the catch and then high-level perimeter defenders. The perimeter defense has, it's like the walls of Jerusalem. The shit that's come tearing down this year. And so that's really exacerbated their lack of rim protection, the fact that they can't get stops on the ball. And then on offense, the fact that Reggie Bullock is your number one small forward. Technically, it's Josh Green, but he's missed some time. He ain't playing their game versus the Mavericks. Or he did. He came off the bench. For some strange reason, I forget. I'm looking at the box score. Jason Kidd has his best wing in Josh Green coming off the bench, which doesn't make much sense to me. And now Mavericks, you can quite clearly tell Jason Kidd as the fall guy here. If they miss the playoffs this year, that I think he has to actually get the blame.
But you're saying not fired, though. He doesn't deserve to lose his job.
It's getting close to that point.
How long has he been the Mavericks head coach?
2 seasons.
Dude, that's too much, man. Weren't they just – they made the conference finals, did they not?
With him his first year at the team.
Yep. Yeah, so no, you can't – no, that's ridiculous, Sean. That's too much. Blame, fine, but fired is way too much. I'm looking at Kyrie's numbers in the month of March. This guy is 50, 40, 90 right now. He's doing 50, 40, 90. Why I say that because, listen, we know Kyrie can put up the box office numbers. We know that. Are the numbers impactful though? That's the difference, and I don't think they really are. And I think the winning loss streak counts that. I mean, look at it; they've got 4 losses and 3 wins in the month of March with Kyrie on the court. I mean, so I agree with you. I just don't think Kyrie was the right guy to bring in. The fit doesn't work. Kyrie works better with a guy like a LeBron. Luka works better where he's the main guy. His second guy isn't taking a lot away from him, and he's got the defenders around him and the 3-point shooters around him where he can just dish it. And I think giving him a big man is an important thing too. I mean, could you imagine him and Embiid or something like that? I mean, Jesus Christ, him and Jokic would be such an interesting matchup to watch.
Luka or Kyrie?
What happened? Oh, Luka.
Luka and AD would be the best, I think.
Luka and AD. I would just like to see Luka and Jokic, 2 European guys, and I think they just get the game, and like the passing might be like next level. It might be akin to what we saw with LeBron and Wade, where they're just like on a different level, but that's just maybe just me. So yeah, these Mavericks are going to have a tough time. I mean, where are they right now? They're the 11th seed right now, John?
Yeah. And because of the West, the extreme hierarchy and the way it's so balanced right now, they're also a game out from the 7th spot and 2.5 games from the 6th spot. There's more separation, though, between the Clippers, Warriors, and Suns to the Wolves, Lakers, and Mavericks. There's really a split now of 2.5 games. And so we're starting to see the conference finally divide in order.
Yeah, so here's the final question, I guess, for this. Do we think Dallas gets into the play-in?
Yeah, I'd hope so. They're 1 spot out from the Thunder. And the Pelicans are not a better team. I know they've won 4 straight games. Yeah. It's a fraudulent 4-game winning streak. I mean, I know they smacked the Clippers last night. Silly. And Trey Murphy's playing well, but the Pelicans are not staying above the Mavericks. Even as Zion comes back, I don't think. Look, Luka, you said before that he's not LeBron and that Kyrie won't fit off of him. And I understand where you're coming from. Luka is the most specific guard, any superstar specific to play with. But when you have Luka on your team, you're going to have to take a pretty steady backseat role and really play off the catch a lot more than you ever have, because his style is the offensive engine. LeBron could relegate to a secondary star more often. He would relish that because as a role man, LeBron has so much pop athletically, just cutting, diving to the rim, slipping, setting screens. Luka does not have that element to his game, right? That athletic ability. That's fine. And I understand where you're coming from, but I want to make one thing very clear. Kyrie Irving is not the Mavericks' problem. Now, if he walks in free agency, that is the problem, right? But on the floor, he is the second best player, the second most important player, and the second reason why this team has a chance to go somewhere meaningful this year. But everything else around Luka and Kyrie Irving is fundamentally broken. From the GM that's done a terrible job building this roster, sacrificing a lot of the key parts, to the head coach and Jason Kidd. Look, Brent, he should be on the hot seat because this year has been one of the worst coaches in the NBA in every aspect. And when you look at a team with this much pressure on them, you want a guy that's going to emotionally keep them intact. And this year, this team's combustible. So I think it's very reasonable he would be on the hot seat, even if last year they had a pretty impressive playoff run.
Yeah, but do you blame Jason Kidd for Brunson not being there anymore?
Not at all.
Do you blame Jason Kidd for making the trade for Kyrie?
No, but that was a smart trade in many ways that they needed to make.
Would you rather have the team last year that the Mavericks had or the team currently constructed right now? If you're Mark Cuban, you know everything now. You're looking at both things. Which one would you rather have? I think that the answer is pretty easy, John. I think you know the answer. You don't want to say it right now. It's last year's team. All right, let's just say it's last year.
I'm trying to think about how much cap space they're going to have this summer. And that's why
I'm just talking currently constructed. Don't go into the offseason because currently constructed. Like, let's say they have Kyrie going forward. You'd rather have last year's team because you have more flexibility. You believe Jalen Brunson plays better off of Luka than Kyrie. You have more defenders around Luka, more 3-point shooters. Right now, you're kind of bereft of defense mostly. You have a couple of 3-point guys there, but last year's team played better than this year's team. I think
Last
that's
fair take.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So I get your blame on Jason Kidd, but he was dealt a hand. Going into the season, he didn't have his second guy in Jalen Brunson. And then going into the trade deadline, he lost his best 3-and-D guy, another spark plug off the bench, and Spencer Dinwiddie.
Frankly, he's only a good defender, and
and that hurts for him. You know, I would imagine. Listen, he was probably ecstatic because he saw Kyrie because it's the big name, but now you've played a little bit and you've realized, oh, this doesn't work. Oh, where's my defense? Oh, crap, we're screwed.
On to the offseason. Now, I think Luka should be an MVP candidate in my eyes because
this year,
how shameless a carry job the guy's had.
This
I know
year?
he's not winning. That's why I think he's in the top 5. Him and Dame, they've been so great. Steph was in the top 5 in 2021. The Warriors didn't make the playoffs. They didn't get out the playing tournament.
I don't agree with either of that. I don't think you can have a negative record and be in the MVP case. That just doesn't work for me.
Oh, okay, but the MVP race is something that is so finite and so opinionated. We're going to dive into the MVP discussion, some of the issues with it, and who is most deserving to win. Now, last night, Giannis went to the Mile High in Denver, had 24 points, went 10 of 11, I think, or 10 of 14 from the field in the first half. Then in the second half, in the third quarter, Aaron Gordon puts him in a straitjacket. He locks him up in the half court. The Bucks offense starts to get leaky. They miss shots. They're creating turnovers, and the Nuggets get a double-digit win. So Denver currently is at 50 wins. Jokic gets his 12,000th career point last night, and the Nuggets are clearly the number 1 seed in Western Conference. Giannis, meanwhile, is at 52 wins. Pretty similar kind of stats. They're both at 11 to 12 rebounds. Jokic is at 9.9 assists. Giannis at 6 if you round up. And then at points per game, Giannis is at 30 this year. Jokic is at 24. So Nikola is averaging 6 less points, but he's doing that on 10% better true shooting at 70%. That leads the league relative to Giannis at 60%, barely above average. I want to ask you, we've had this discussion now twice on the channel with Romain and then with Justin. Does the MVP race change too much? Year to year, is the criteria always wax and wane? And the second part of that question is, who is your MVP at this current point?
So to answer the first one, for me personally, it's, there's a couple of factors that go into MVP. Team success is obviously one of them. And by team success, I mean you are the driving force of that team's success. Like Jokic, Embiid, Giannis are the driving forces for those teams. Numbers, obviously, great numbers. You got Jokic almost putting up a triple-double. And the shooting percentages you brought up. I mean, if this guy was shooting 90% from the free throw line this year, he'd be 60, 40, 90. Don't know if that's ever been done. Giannis, he's doing 54% from the field, and we know his numbers. I think he's 31 points, 11 boards. Like you said, 6 assists. And then you got Embiid, the leading scorer in the NBA with 33 points. I think he's at 10 or something boards, and he's almost got 2 blocks. And he's shooting over 50% from the field. I think it's his highest for his career, if I'm not mistaken. And his free throw percentage is higher than both Jokic and Giannis. He's at 85%. So obviously, the team success driving force for it. The count in numbers, you got to fill up the box scores and look real pretty. I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
Build off that. You made an amazing point. Thank you for making this, because so many people forget it. Do you drive elite level performance on your end of the floor? That's what the MVP should be about. And oftentimes we lose sight of that if a certain player is a little bit more influential and exciting to watch than others.
Yes. Oh, and obviously, defense has been such a forgotten aspect of the NBA. Like it seems like you're the MVP. You don't have to be a great defender. That's more left for defensive player of the year. That's why I think a lot of people are like looking at Giannis and Embiid and they're like, bro, they both clear Jokic on the defensive end. But yeah, I feel like those are the 2 best things to contribute it. Are you the team success, driving force for it, and your counting numbers, and you look at it. Now, this one is a tougher year because I've laid the numbers out for you, and it kind of just depends on what you favor more, right? I mean, Jokic is at 24 points. I think that is kind of the only thing that you can argue that's holding him back. If he was up to 28, 29 with Embiid and Giannis, which he wouldn't be at the same number, but he'd at least be, 2 or 3 points at there. I don't think this would be a discussion. I think maybe he's at 25 rounding up, and he's having a triple double.
But are you overrating points per game? We talked about, do you drive elite level performance? Shit, Kelly Oubre is averaging 20 in Charlotte. That's in the 30th rank.
Yeah, but yeah, I know that. But like Giannis Embiid's the leading scorer, and I think that means something, being a leading the lead scorer in the NBA.
8 more points, but 6% better shooting from
more assists, which means he's attributing to his that's what I'm saying. But you can take into account this: Embiid's got almost a full block more a game than him. And if you like defense, he shoots better from the free throw percentage. So this is what I'm saying. It really depends on what you favor. And I like your arguments, and I think right now I would favor Jokic. Right? I said that when we first started talking about it. I said I think Jokic is kind of won the award. Then the Nuggets kind of went on their downward. Yeah, I said it was kind of. Losses. I said that it opened up. It reopened, and now. I'm obviously still favoring Jokic. I think Giannis is the third guy now. Embiid's performance last night against the Suns isn't the best, especially losing.
Yeah, another tough loss. Why is Giannis the third guy, though?
I do think, like we talked about it before the show, I do think recency bias and head-to-heads, I think voters actually look into that. That can be another argument for another day. Should head-to-heads matter? I think that they should matter a little bit. I don't know if they should impact it a lot.
No, that should be like a, tiebreaker.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it should mean a little bit, like, these guys are going at it. Oh, well, look at the head-to-heads, man. This guy, when they went head-to-head, look who was balling.
That's why Jokic got favored last year against Embiid. He beat him the one time they played.
Yep. So, that's why I say Giannis has kind of fallen to number 3. And also, I just think, listen, Giannis's free throw percentage and his 3-point percentage, I feel like bring them down a little bit. When you look at Jokic and you look at Embiid, their percentages are looking much better than Giannis's. So I think that also brings him down a little bit too. Also, the count. I'm bringing up counting numbers. I don't think Giannis is at a block or a steal, a full block or steal a game, which I think that's like the first time in his career since like maybe his first couple seasons.
It is the first time since his sophomore year.
Yeah, so that's not good. Freaking Jokic is over a steal a game. So yeah, that's why I say Giannis is kind of, even though he's the number 1 seed, he's got the best record in the NBA. He's the number 1, and Middleton has been out a lot, so you can make those arguments, and I agree with those arguments. I do. But right now, and we're going to see. Listen, Embiid and Jokic play tomorrow night.
BC, I fundamentally disagree. Giannis is the MVP. This is coming from a Jokic fan. I was doing some self-reflecting last night, right? Giannis is the MVP because he has the best record in the league with his co-star Chris Middleton missing almost 40 games. Yeah. Now, he's had Brook Lopez handling the blocks. He's got 2.5 a game. Giannis is far and away the most versatile defender out of this group. So while Embiid leads the top 10, top 5 defense and offense, Giannis is really the fabric of what makes the Bucks defense really top 5, top 3 this season beyond the shot blocking. Points per game, still at 30, even though he can't make a jump shot. Now, not making a jump shot matters because he is far and away the least efficient player out of this group. But here's the issue with MVP. We always make MVP about, have you won a championship? And so if Nikola Jokic, a lot of people don't want to give him a third straight because he hasn't gotten to the finals yet. Giannis has gone to the finals. And oh, by the way, had one of the greatest finals performances we've ever seen, coming off a knee hyperextension. It looked so bad he wouldn't play in that season or in the NBA finals. Giannis is the best player in the world. Giannis is leading the best team. And Giannis is clearly the most deserving this year because in spite of all the injuries with the Bucks, he's still done a great job on both ends of the floor. He's the best two-way player of this group. Now, as a Jokic fan, I think he is the best floor raiser simply because he can do it with anybody. And because of his offensive greatness, his magnitude, making a guy like Aaron Gordon so much better in that side of the ball, AG can then help him out defensively. Now, I don't know if you know this. Clutch defense is a very nice stat to look at. 5 minutes or less, 5 points or less. Could you take a guess who was number 1 this year in clutch defense with a 94.7 defensive rating per NBA.com? You are muted. And I'm willing to bet you don't know.
I said, is it Giannis?
It is the Denver Nuggets.
Oh, you meant team. Okay, sorry. I misunderstood your question. Okay.
Yeah, whenever I use defensive rating, to all of our listeners out there, it is a team stat. We're never using defensive rating as an individual stat. The Nuggets are the best defensive rating, and the big reason why is because thanks to Nikola's passing from any level, transition, at the posts, top of the key, top of the block, whatever it may be, it allows Michael Malone to play better defensive personnel, knowing Jokic will get him on the back end on offense. So AG, KCP, Bruce Brown, they have defensive talent. It's just a matter of in the closing stretches, Jokic actually starts to try them. Jokic is a fine defender. The personnel around him is fine, maybe above average. And so that's a really important stat to look at because they can defend. But in today's day and age, where it's more than ever about the perimeter scoring, more about perimeter shooting, it's really impossible for any center to really thrive on that side of the ball. We saw Jordan Poole cook Embiid the other night defensively, and no one really wants to talk about that. Now, Joel Embiid, Brandon, is doing some pretty historical stuff. He is the first center since Moses Malone 82 to average 30 a game. The first center since Bob McAdoo a decade before to average 30 in back-to-back seasons. But I don't think Embiid should be getting MVP solely because he hasn't gotten one yet, and he's up. He's due for one. I don't know is that how MVP should work? That, Embiid, he's finally up for one. He hasn't gotten yet. This is his year. Or should it be because it's his first time playing 60 games since his third or fourth year in the league in 2019, and he's also leading a top five defense with a top 10 offense thanks to his scoring gravitas.
Yeah. No, I did. Yeah, it shouldn't be because you're up and you haven't won. That's stupid. But like I said, for NBA, and you make great points. Listen, that's why this race is so freaking tight, and that's why it's a great argument to have of who do you have. Because you can make a case for any of them, and you make a great case for Giannis. You can make a great case for Jokic, and you can make a great case for Embiid. That's why this is such a good argument. And listen, right now I'd give Jokic the slight edge, like I said. And when I say Giannis is third in this race, it's still super close, and we still got 9 games left. It's anyone's game. And listen, Giannis he played Jokic last night. He's got a matchup still with Embiid to come, and Jokic and Embiid play tomorrow night. So we got the matchups head to heads. I think are going to mean something. So it's going to be real interesting to see. Listen, people are going to be mad either way, whoever gets this award. And I don't think championship should be a reason why you're the MVP. I don't believe that. What I brought up when we were talking about that is just if he does get the third MVP for the third year in a row, your ass better at least be in the finals. That's my whole thing.
So a finals appearance and a trophy would then validate your candidacy as a 3-time MVP. So that's the issue here. MVP, it's become the GOAT debate where all we want to do is just tear down players we don't like and just favor the guy that is our dude. And that's not cool. And Michael Malone talked about that, how Jokic is even turned off by the race because as us fans, we want to see that player get to that level, but there's no guarantee. With Giannis, we know this year, I at least know the Bucks are the best team in the East. And so if they go to the finals, I wouldn't be surprised if I've already seen it already.
Are you saying I'm holding that against that I'm doing that?
You are one of the people that sounds like it, yeah.
See, again, I disagree. I think that's playing the victim card, and I don't appreciate that. You guys are high-level athletes getting paid the most money to play a freaking game of basketball, and you're going to bitch and moan about that? Like, really? Because you're a 3-time MVP, and your ass has never been to a finals. Not just me is complaining. Players, former players are bringing this up as well. So, where'd my partner go? He disappeared. But listen, I listen. I don't like that. I don't like when people play the victim card, John, and say, "Oh, woe is me." Well, it's just screw off, man. All right, because that's not cool. Don't goat people into picking you because you're not performing to the level. And listen, we can make the argument about why he didn't get to where he got to in the finals.
Yep.
Okay, but what happened, and the cards were dealt, and that for me, I don't play with that. I don't think that's cool at all. So Mike Malone, Jokic, don't play the victim card. Woe is not you. So just cut it out with that. That's not cool. That's not cool at all.
Part of it was basically just Michael Malone saying the MVP race too much about tearing players down. Not as much playing the victim card. It's just a matter of
tearing you down. You're in the conversation to be the MVP of the league. Tear you down?
Yeah.
What?
That's what NBA fans have done. It's all about breaking down one player to build up another like Embiid.
No, it's not. See, this is the victim bullshit of the new generation that people want to bring up. No, it's not. You're in the discussion for this is the whole LeBron, Michael Jordan. Oh, if I don't say LeBron's the GOAT, I'm disrespecting him. No, I'm not. I'm calling him the second greatest player in NBA history. That means LeBron James is the second best player to ever step foot on an NBA court. How is that disrespectful? Again, how is it disrespectful saying Jokic is the second best player in the league? How is that disrespectful? How am I tearing him down? We're splitting hairs, John. When we're talking about the greats, we split hairs. That's what we do. It's sports debate. So stop with the whole woe is me, victim card bull crap, the new generation. I hate that. You're one of the greats, and what are you complaining about? That's whack, man. That's whack. Go ahead. That's whack.
It's not a matter of, oh, you don't have LeBron as this all the time, or, oh, you don't have Jokic MVP. Come on, that's disrespect. It's more a matter of, in the process of getting a Giannis or Joel as MVP, people will tear them down, find the things to harp on, and they'll really overanalyze that. And part of it's, oh, Joel Embiid just a three-throw merchant. He doesn't deserve MVP. Or Jokic stat padding. We try to take away their accolades and their performances by saying, oh, he's not a top 10 scorer in the NBA. And we really overanalyze those certain things that don't matter.
They do
matter.
It's
false narratives at the end.
Wait. The first stuff you brought up, the free throw merch, okay, that's fine. I'll agree with that. But being only scoring 25 points and not being a top 10 scorer in the league when you're comparing to two guys who are Giannis is number 5 and the other guy is the leading scorer, that is a fair argument to make because we're counting numbers as the MVP. Those do matter. If you're going to bring up field goal and true shooting percentage, I can bring up how much points you're scoring. That matters. So again, the whole woe is me thing, stop it. Stop it. You're in the MVP case. You are talked about as one of the greats. What do you mean? Just because I say that you win 3 MVPs all back to back to back, and you don't even get to the finals. Yes, I'm going to be like, well, what's going on there? I don't think that doesn't link in my head. That doesn't mean I'm going to tear you down. I know how great Jokic is. He's a freaking generational center talent. I don't think we've ever seen a player like him. So I'm not tearing him down. I'm just telling you that doesn't connect. And I feel like that is common practice. If a guy goes 1, 2, 3 MVPs in a row and doesn't make one finals appearance, you're not going to be like, well, that's interesting. Well, why is that? And then you go through it and you go, Jamal Murray went down, this happened, blah, blah, blah. But this year, I feel number 1 seed, 50-win team. Murray's here. Porter's here. AG's here. I feel like there's no excuses this year. No excuses this year, man. You can try and bring them up, but then guess what? Guess who's playing the victim card now? Guess who's playing the victim card now if you try to make excuses for this year? I'm just saying.
Okay. You're right.
I don't appreciate that, what you brought up. And I don't know if you're making that argument, but if you are, I don't appreciate it. And Mike Malone and Jokic, the guys who were making, I don't appreciate that. I don't like the victim stuff being played in the newest generation. I know I'm young, but I don't like that. Okay, you guys are great. Jokic might turn out to be an all-time great. Stop playing the victim card here. You're making millions upon millions of dollars. You are a top 1%er. Stop it. Stop it. Sorry, that was just my own little rant.
We got Darren Gordon Hill in the chat. How about waiting till after the playoffs? What if he doesn't win MVP? That's another issue here. Are we going to give the MVP award in the middle of the playoffs or at the end of it? I think it should go out as regular season ends personally. If it's a regular season award, that way people don't mistake it for that. Sam Mitchell made that point the other week. And also with Jokic, I just feel like we're going to look at him if he doesn't get to the finals this year, because only one team can win the championship at the end of the day. I know it's the top 1%. And look, I get that. Only one team will get it done. So if Jokic doesn't win a championship this year, let's say, right? And currently NBA.com or NBA, the basketball reference page, has him listed as a favorite. People are going to remember him as the 3-time MVP that never won a championship.
100%.
And that's gonna really tarnish his legacy in many ways. The same way we think of Steve Nash, we think, oh, he should have been a 2-time back-to-back MVP. And so that for me is what I don't appreciate. How people are then going to look at Jokic's legacy if he gets awarded something that almost feels like it becomes a burden. If you have an MVP but non-NBA championship, you're known as one of those guys. And it's not like you're voting yourself for the awards being given to you, and then the people that vote you for then penalize you and tarnish your legacy years later.
But again, see, like, John, do you really think it bugs Charles Barkley that much?
No, okay. That year he led his team to the finals in 93.
Yes, but I think 30 years ago, yes, it probably bugged him. 20 years ago, it did a lot. I think nowadays, eventually, once you get to an age, this shit that doesn't bother you anymore, man. You're old. Who cares? Maybe this point it does. But again, does it tarn it? If he never wins a championship, John, in Jokic's career, you don't think that he should be knocked for that?
He should. But
that's what I'm saying. So that's what we're saying. Maybe not this year, but like if he goes his entire career and doesn't even win, that's gonna. I mean, he can make up for if he doesn't win and I'm not even saying he has to win this year. I'm just saying at least get there. But if he eventually gets to a finals and wins it, maybe like 3, 4, 5 years down the line, I feel like he's wiped clear and he's done his thing. But if he goes his entire career and never wins,
the Dirk effect.
You have to get tarnished. I mean, and again, he's going to remember as one of those guys. 100% he is. Look at the Buffalo Bills of the 90s. They're famous for what? 4 straight Super Bowls, 4 straight losses. It's what it is. Listen, we can say that's freaking a great accomplishment. 4 Super Bowls in a row nobody's ever done that before. But guess what? We also have to lay out the facts. You lost 4 times. Jokic, 3-time MVP. And to the commenter's point, I have always thought about that. Not after the playoffs. I'm talking maybe the cutoff is the conference finals. But then again, the argument is going to be like, well, let's say an injury or something happens, and let's say Jokic gets bounced in the first round or whatever, and he doesn't even have a chance to compete later into the conference finals and stuff. It just, that thing gets convoluted. So I agree. Maybe they just make a playoff award or something, playoff MVP. But yeah, that one gets tough to wait until after the playoffs to crown and make the playoffs mean something in the MVP award is what I should say.
Yeah, I've always felt like we forget that the MVP is meant to be a regular season award. And it's understandable because the playoffs is supposed to reinforce why you were the MVP. With Jokic the last 2 years, it hasn't. The same way with Giannis the 2 years prior, it didn't serve him too well. So I see where you're coming from. We should look at the players the way they should be looked. I just, as a Jokic fan, I'm tired of the disrespect. I'm ready for him to go at the finals this year. I'm done with it. So none of this is going to matter in 4 months.
Well, I mean, you're not picking Jokic. I hope you're not picking. You're picking Giannis, not because you don't want Jokic to get this.
No, Giannis is my MVP. Okay. But let me tell you something. He gets way too much disrespect. The last 2 years, the guy has 10 MVP votes. 10.
Cool.
Giannis, and he has been just as deserving as Embiid, I feel like. So all three have a great case. I think this game tomorrow night, Denver versus Philadelphia, that really might be what decides MVP. The way last year when Jokic beat Embiid head-to-head with a 30-point triple-double, I think, maybe a 20-point, that then gave him the edge. And the voting was a landslide. He got 65 votes to Embiid with 26.
Yeah. Listen, the thing with Giannis is like his stats the last 4 years, 5 years or whatever have been so similar, to his MVP run that maybe that's why he gets a little bit less talk around the MVP.
It's less exciting.
Yeah.
We get numbed by Giannis' greatness. That's the reason why. It's not fun to watch him just bare. I don't even know what to describe his play style like. But
MVP fatigue. It's the same thing.
He's Derrick Henry, except he's also one of the 5 best defenders in the world too.
7 inches taller than Derrick Henry too.
Probably more on that. So now we're going to shift gears to UFC. We talked about NBA for about 40 minutes. We had some controversy. What's going on from last night's showing?
So UFC was live from San Antonio last night. We had Chito, Marlon Vera taking on Cory the Sandman Sandhagen. 2 top 5 bantamweights, Chito number 3, Sandhagen number 5. In a 5-round main event. And there was some controversy. Now, just quickly, going into the 5th round, I said it was either 4-0 Cory Sandhagen or 2-2 going into the 5th. Now, that wasn't more my opinion. It was more I try to get into the judge's head when I give those scorecards out a little bit. I can give you my opinion. I thought it was 3-1 going into the 5th. I had 3 rounds to Cory, 1 round for Chito. But 4-0 and 2-2 is what I thought, the judges thought. And when you see the scorecards afterwards, one judge gave Chito 3 rounds. He won. I'm going to pull up the exact scorecards right here. All right. So Chris Lee, the first judge, had rounds 1, 2, 4, and 5 for Cory, and he gave round 3 to Chito. That I agree with. That lines up with my scorecard, my opinion scorecard. 49-46 for Cory. Sal D'Amato had all 5 rounds to Cory, 5-round shutout, which again I could also see because rounds 3 and 4 were super close. Super close. Those were Chito's best rounds, but Cory also had his moments. Both guys had their moments in those rounds. Rounds 1, 2, and 5, to me, clear as day, Cory Sandhagen won those rounds. Last judge, Joel Ojeda or Ojeda. I probably butchered his name, and you know what? Rightfully so. He deserves to have his name butchered because, goddamn it, guy. He had both rounds 1 and 2 for Cory, which makes total sense. But then 3, 4, and 5 for Chito. Now, see, this is why I tweeted out I could see 2-2 going into the 5th for Chito because 3 and 4 were super close, and I could see one of these judges. And if you're an MMA fan, you know these judges sometimes are just off in the stars. So 3, 4 they gave to Chito, but 5 for Chito is absolutely ridiculous. Mm-hmm. I saw no chance and no way that he won that round. But after the fight, I tweeted this. I loved that Alan Joe Bain, a former fighter, and Laura Sanko, a former fighter herself, are calling out that judge and calling out the judges. Joe Bain, to be more direct, I mean, he literally called them out and said, these judges need to answer for their actions. They make these decisions. They hold so much weight, hold these fighters' careers and trajectories in their hands, the palm of their hands sometimes. And you can't be lax. You have to explain your actions. There has to be, and listen, I'm a big listener to Ariel Helwani, the best and biggest MMA journalist and interviewer out there. And he's been riding this train for the longest too. These judges need to answer for their actions, their decisions. You should have to come out like the fighters do after their fights, like Dana does after an event and stuff like that, and answer to the public, to the media. Explain to us how you gave that round. Explain to us how you gave that fight to Chito Vera. Please walk us through your method. Or at least he should have to go to his boss and watch the freaking fight with him and say, all right, you tell me how you scored this round for him. Explain it to me. And I don't think that happens, and it should. And the only reason it should is because we should be wanting better judging. We should be wanting to evolve and become better for this sport. This sport is only 30 years old. It's the 30th anniversary this year. We should be wanting to get better. And I hate how Dana, the head of the freaking UFC, the most power in mixed martial arts, when it comes to judging, he just blows it off. He doesn't even care anymore. He was asked a question about the split, and he was just like, just basically says, I forgot exactly what he said, but he kind of just blows it off. And at that point, it's like, Dana, there is something you can do. You're Dana freaking White. You have a lot of power. We don't need to bring up what happened a couple months ago and how, you were able to basically get out of it, not take that much punishment or whatever for it. You got power. And for you to not display that power and to basically say, I need the reasons of how you judge these certain this fight, when these controversies happen. And it's just bad for the sport of MMA. It's bad for the company UFC that these judges are not questioned. And at that point too, the scoring system needs to be changed up to and needs to be talked about. I mean, I listened to Big John McCarthy, the OG of OG refs, the guy who was there since the beginning, who was there when they wrote the rules for mixed martial arts in the UFC, literally was there. And you can listen to him on Weighing In podcast. Shout out them, Josh Thompson. And we need to relook at the scoring system. And I think everybody agrees with that. The 10-9 must system is a dud. It's a boxing scoring system, and it doesn't work for MMA with the wrestling, the jiu-jitsu, the elbows, the kicks, and all these certain stuff. The boxing doesn't work. Maybe I don't know what would work, but a conversation to be had. People have talked decimals. Do you give a 9.8, 9.5 or whatever? People have talked fractions. People have talked all these certain things that I just think need to be talked about. When we're 30 years into it, we're celebrating the 30th anniversary. I feel like we should always be taking steps forward to bettering this sport and the company. And I don't think those things are happening right now. And I think these conversations need to happen. So that's all I'm saying is I just wish that conversations would start to be had and the judges would, speak for their actions and tell us how it happened. That's all I'm asking.
And this goes for all sports.
Yeah.
Judges and officials have no responsibility. And the reason for that is because we don't want to see them on our televisions. We just want to see them just not screw up the game and just call it the way it should be or make the right judgment. And with judging especially, you talked about the 10-9 system and how confusing that can be as well for UFC fans just get into it. Like when I first started watching, I didn't understand it. It's hard to follow along.
Nope.
It's like, why is it supposed to be 10-9 or whatever the case may be?
Yep.
That's my interpretation of when I first started watching. And the other element of it too is when you incorporate all of the jiu-jitsu and all the extra stuff that's beyond just boxing, the mixed martial arts, that too just makes it a broken, flawed concept, I think. It's so much harder to track and follow along. Whereas, hey, look, if you're an experienced UFC fan, you can follow along and understand it. But if you're not like me and you're more of a casual, that can be something it's like, what? I don't know what the hell's going on. So that is why
even for hardcore fans, it's hard to understand at certain points. I mean, you pull on MMA Twitter, even the hardcore guys they're all disagreeing because nobody knows what the hell the scoring system is. I mean, even the commentators at one point, Joe Rogan, DC, John Anik, all these guys, they had to be educated last year. They actually had classes to be educated on the scoring system. Think about that. How many years into the game you're just getting educated on it? And we still don't have clarity on it. That's not okay. It's not. And you bring up the score. Like, again, I forgot, like a 10-9 can mean so many different things. A 10-9 can be, wow, this was such a close freaking round, but I'm going to give the slight edge to this guy. Or a 10-9 can be, that guy won the round pretty easily for me. Not super dominant, not super convincing, but that guy won the round for me. You see, but then the 10-8 is domination. But what do you mean by domination? Like, if I control you for like 4 minutes on the ground but don't do much damage, is that a 10-8? If I knock you down twice but you're able to fight back, is that a 10-8? Like, there's so many different things that can happen in a course of a fight that I just feel the experts of the experts, which I am not, which means this should be even more clear to those experts if I'm able to see it. The experts of the experts should be having these conversations and things should be moving forward. 30th anniversary. I love this sport. It's my favorite sport. It's taken over football for me. I just want it to be better. 30 years down, and I hope 30 more years to go and beyond that too. I just want to see the sport get better. That's it. Can't hear you, John.
I think that goes for anything, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. Comment of the week. Let's do this. Manu Ingles as a fair comp for Austin Reeves. I kind of like that a little bit. Manu Ingles.
Manu Ingles?
But that's I want to start doing our comment of the week to our top comment or favorite, or the case may be. Get more engagement going with our fans and not fan. I hate calling viewers fans. It's so stupid in my opinion. But people. Like the community.
Our people.
Exactly. Wise guys. I hate calling people wise guys. I don't consider myself. We do this podcast, the wise guys going back and forth, but I don't like to consider. That's not what we should call the subscribers. I don't know.
We'll come up with something. Don't worry.
Our people is a better baseline.
Yeah, our people. So you are people, man. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say on the UFC. Nothing much more. I'm seeing a report here. Apparently, the roughing the passer review is unlikely at this point, which I don't know. There's something to bring up.
Like are they changing the rule for roughing the passer?
No, teams wanted it to be a reviewable call so that they can challenge it and stuff like that, because it's not right now.
I think that should, if that's the case, I'm cool with that, but it has to be in the last 4 minutes or less.
Yeah.
Or the last minute and a half.
Yeah.
No,
we were just talking about we're just talking about judging and referees but it's the same thing with all the other sports. NFL's been around for 100 years now, 100 plus years. They still don't have their entire crap together either. It's just, yeah.
This is what it is. With all that being said, I'll wrap up episode number 88 of the Wise Guys podcast. Thanks so much for watching, staying to the very end. If you enjoyed, be sure to like and follow for more content like this. And as always, we'll see you next time. Stay classy.
Stay classy.